Hello and welcome. My name is Justin. This is an FIU Computer Science capstone senior project called Test Case Management and Automation. This is an introductory video showing you a little bit about the software created during this project. So this is a project sponsored by Ultimate Software with mentors Tariq King and Dione Santiago. So what is this project all about? It centers around, as the title suggests, test case management. So managing test plans and all of their various elements, including suites, cases, and steps. Suites act like folders. Cases are in step aggregates. So for instance, if you want to do an ATM withdrawal, all of the steps that would be within that withdrawal would be in a test case called ATM withdrawal. Now, the purpose of this project is to create a centralized system which will allow for the aggregation and manipulation of test plan information from a common user interface that's easy to use and rapid to create test plans. So this should work with third-party test management systems. The test management system we were given is Team Foundation Server 2013. And so our system is supposed to take information from the test plans in TFS, synchronize it, and clone any objects missing with our own database, and then publish it to a user interface. And this is done through a series of adapters, so that there's a common method for interacting with each of these systems, so that the system can be easily extended to other management systems as well. So if you have a 4-stage pipeline to get your testing out, and each stage might have a best-of-breed test management system, you can then hook all these test management systems up to TestFlow, which would then provide a common user interface for editing all of these tests, rather than trying to adapt from one interface to the other depending on which test you're trying to modify and having a ton of windows open. It just centralizes everything. So we have a little picture of that here. The blue we have not implemented, the green we have implemented. The TestFlow user interface has its own model, which resides in JavaScript and gets stored to local storage for semi-persistent storage. The TestFlow backend provides an MS SQL server for the persistent storage of test plans, and we have TFS server, which we've developed an adapter for, and that stores its own test plans as well. So what happens here is when you connect to a new Team Foundation server from TestFlow, TestFlow will look for any projects that you have permissions to access. It will then take those projects and clone them and put them into its own persistent storage model. And then anytime the user makes requests after that for any of these projects, they will be synchronized again. It will check for changes in Team Foundation server and mirror them over. The user interface, since it has its own model as well here, also can make changes and then push them down. When they go into the TestFlow backend, they're immediately also pushed out to Team Foundation server. So hence the two-way flow of data here. So there's essentially 3 models. There's the user interface model that resides in the client browser. There is the database in the TestFlow backend, and there is the Team Foundation server model hosted on a Team Foundation server. And essentially the system can be extended to allow for adapters for other test management systems where you could have even more models. So let's get into a demo. Hi, here's what the system looks like when you first visit it and log in. Now, by login, I mean single sign-on. This uses Windows authentication, so this immediately would prompt you for a Windows account if you are on some type of domain that shares account information. If you are on a domain that shares account information, it'll just log you in immediately, and you'll see your Windows user up here. And you can log out, so if you're on a domain, if you're on a computer, someone else's computer or something like that, and you need to access other projects, you can log out and log in as another Windows user by pressing this button here. So the prompt here says choose a project. projects are located in the top left corner, and projects are simply collections of test plans. So let's click this button. We have two projects here. We have Hello World and Smoke Test. Hello World is something I typically use for unit testing and system testing. So there's a lot of test plans with funny names and things like that where I'm testing characters and various other things. Now this drop down with test plans also has the ability to create a new test plan. So if I click here, I can type in a test plan name and create it. When I do this, it immediately sends the test plan information and creates a new test plan in the TestFlow backend, and also propagates out to Team Foundation server. So you have a new test plan in both locations. Or I can click on a test plan and it will bring up more information about that test plan. So let's switch over to Smoke Test. So now it says choose test plan, and we will choose the only test available in Smoke Test, or we can create a new one. So actually, let's create a new one quickly. So this is my new test plan. And I just push create test plan. And now I'll say choose test plan, just in case I just wanted to create a stub or something and go back to another one. And I can choose my new test plan. And now there are no suites in this test plan, so I can immediately go ahead and make a suite. Suite new. And if I click on this suite, you'll see here there's a blue little plus icon. That means that going back to this model, that the suite only exists here. It's not in the backend, it's not in any persistent storage yet, or long-term persistent storage. It's simply in my model on the user interface. And so to facilitate the generation of rapid test plans, we use a lot of key bindings from Microsoft Office, specifically Word. This works kind of like a bulleted list, so you can imagine this as being the first bullet in the list. If you press enter, it immediately generates a new test case for you. So I can type in my test case, and if I press enter again, it'll make a new test case, which is kind of like a new bullet on that same level. Or just like in Word, I can press the tab key, and now I have a test step, which is like an indented bullet, and I can type first test step, and the results it's supposed to give me is a string. Now, if this was a mistake and I actually said, wait, no, I don't want to do this, or I went down here and press enter again, it creates a new test step, which is like a bullet on the same level. However, if I don't want that, if I want to go back to creating more test cases, I can hit Shift Tab, and now I have a test case. It basically changed the type of the object that had focus. So I can type my second test here, and now I have two test cases, one test step, and a new suite, all sitting here on the model. Very quickly created. You don't have to really wait for anything. Now, if I'm unsatisfied with these or I don't want to keep them, I can discard them, and it will synchronize the user interface model with whatever's in the TestFlow and Team Foundation systems. However, if I want to publish these, if I'm satisfied with what I have, I can press sync. And sync immediately begins generating the new test suite, the step, and the test cases. And you can see the blue little icons are now gone. That means that these objects now reside in all the models. They're in Team Foundation server, they're in the TestFlow backend, and they're in the user interface model. So if I go ahead and I decide, you know what, I want to change this test case. I'm not going to call it my second test. I'm going to call it deposit test case. I'm going to press enter, and I'm going to hit tab, and I'm going to make a step. Insert ATM card. And I won't go through the rest, but you can continue filling these down. Typically, you wouldn't have just one step like that. You would have select deposit type, and then you would insert the cash or whatever. Insert currency. And it will register currency amount. Okay, so we have a little test case here going. So we have new test steps and we have a modified test case. And you can tell it's modified because this little yellow icon and this little dialog that pops up saying the test case has changed from the original. So we know we have a change here, and we know these are being inserted very clearly. And I can press sync again. And voila, you see that we now have these existing in all the models. So this is my new test plan, suite new, my test case, and deposit test case. We just created all of this. So if I open up MTM, which is Microsoft Test Manager, MTM allows for direct interfacing with the Team Foundation server. So if I click up here in Only Test and hit refresh, you will now see, oh, I'm in the wrong test plan. Apologies. So this is my new test plan. You can see that it has a much more recent ID. It's right here. And now we're in it. So now you see new suite new and suite new. Suite new says it has 2 test cases in it. So we click on it and we see my test case and deposit test case. If we click on deposit, you will see all the steps and the expected results. Now this synced perfectly. And if you were to open up our database, you would see the same information there. However, maybe I want to go back and maybe I didn't want to call this currency. Currency is incorrect. Register, or currency is fine there. Insert cash or check. And I want to continue on and add to this. So I want to say return card and return card. There's probably another step in there, but that's okay. So I just saved that on MTM, so directly to Team Foundation server, and it's a new step. And you know what? We're just gonna call this deposit as well, just to put a few more changes. So if I come back over here and I look what's here, nothing's changed. But if I come back and I click on the test step again, you will now see that there's a new step down here that doesn't have the blue icon because it doesn't only exist in the user interface model, but it exists everywhere. And we have something here with a yellow and a yellow. This means that you've had a change here in your model that has been saved, and it doesn't match whatever changes were made in Team Foundation server. So you could choose to keep these features or you could discard them. So if I click discard changes and I open back up my deposit, you'll see insert cash or check and register currency amount. So I now have in the front end model or the user interface model what was put into Team Foundation server. And so you can imagine if we had multiple management systems with the same test on them all, this would allow you to easily manipulate them and save them and synchronize them without conflict, because it will save it on the front end for you. So that's a little demo about how the system works. Now I'll just show you quickly how you configure the system. So if you had multiple test management systems, like say you make an adapter for the IBM's ClearQuest, you could come to this configuration option here, which I just pressed, and you'll see the hosts. You would just add a host and change the adapter type of that host to whichever adapter it is that you want to use. So in this case, we only have one Team Foundation server that we have access to, and so we have the one server listed right here. It's localhost because it resides on the same server, but you could make it remote or anywhere you want. Okay, so that concludes the introduction to the test case management and automation project. Thank you for listening. and have a nice day.